Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Wednesday, and a very warm welcome to the fourth in our series of live CPD microbursts with, he's this side on my screen, Sid Madge from Me Global. So in our monthly sessions since the beginning of this year, Sid's been talking us through all sorts of fabulous ideas around finding the magic within us, sharing it among our communities, and we are this month going to be looking specifically at the topic of kindness. So I've got my cuppa, I've got my notebook, and Sid, I'm pretty much going to hand over to you.
How lovely is that? Well, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you again. Happy Easter for however many weeks it was ago. Hope you had a nice Easter. And as Hannah mentioned, let's talk about the wonderful magic of the world of kindness, really. And bit of housekeeping. We are recording this so others can benefit. So please do enjoy it. Use the chat box, which is super duper. Paula is going to put some links in the chat box just so that people can access, because I'm going to mention a few films and some resources and stuff as well, so that would be good. Please do take notes. Even though Herman Ebbinghaus did say that after 60 days, 90% of all our information drops out of our brains and we forget it, it's actually really useful to write notes and also to kind of share the good stuff with other people. So please do that. That'd be really good. Right, come on then. Let's have some checking in scores, including your good self, Hannah. So not being rubbish, feel rubbish, and 10 being absolutely fantastic. Where are we at?
Oh, well, I've lost a couple of points this week because I've got the tail end of a streaming cold, so that's kind of knocked me down a couple of points, maybe.
Oh, okay. But what number are we going to give?
I'll give it a solid 7.5.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's lovely. And anybody else, what numbers are we looking at here? Anyone going to put in a number in the chat box, which I can see? Stuart, love that, 9. And okay, Stuart, question to you. What would make you a 10? And I think last time you mentioned, was it rum or something? But again, it's a really good question when we are thinking about these checking in scores. And this is a great little thing to do with your staff as well, and with your colleagues and friends or whatever, is just to ask them on a daily basis what you're checking in at. And then at the end of the day, what you're checking out at. This, again, is another great thing. And that we've done this for years and years. But if you can think about one word that you would use to describe yourself, what would it be? And I was at a college yesterday and they were lovely. There we go. Help from the Home Office in completing application for mine. Oh, bless you. Yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it? And it was really interesting. I was at a college yesterday and students are really struggling, whether that's a university or college or whatever. And this is a great little exercise, to ask them. And a lot of the words that I heard yesterday were actually very negative and very doubtful words. So this is a really good opener to ask people how they're feeling. It really is, and what one word they would use to describe themselves. As I mentioned before, we now work with organizations around the world, which is fantastic. We do tons and tons of different work in terms of workshops. We've written a series of books, which have been great. A lot of the work that we do is based and backed by science and backed by neuroscience and all that kind of positive psychology that Martin Seligman always talked about and still talks about now. And I think the thing that we love is that the workshops and the stuff that we do are very creative. And I think that is the main element, isn't it, of kindness, bringing in that element of play. And I know that we're in the business of, saving kind of animals' lives and helping animals' lives. But we've also got people, in our businesses too. And, how can we bring that element of play and kindness? As I mentioned, fantastic books that we wrote a number of years ago. And Paul is going to put in a link to the books if you'd like a copy of those. I think we've even got a special code, Paula, that we can then paste so people can get a nice big discount if you want. None of what you hear from me personally, my organization, or anyone else is more powerful than what you tell yourself. It really isn't. And this is also true of organizations too. And, you might read the greatest book in the world. You might watch the greatest film. You might meet somebody. I've just finished Phil Knight's book about Shoe Dog, which is a brilliant book. Absolutely love that book. Really taken a lot away from it. But ultimately, all the stuff that I've read about that book and read about him, and obviously about Nike and how he started it and founded it, and ultimately, turned it into a PLC. I know the messages that I'm going to take away. And again, this is why it's so important to think about, what does all this stuff mean to you? Because that's what it does. And, the sessions that I was running yesterday for young people in this particular college, they all took something different away. One of the people who were in there was a student 38 years old from Ghana. And he said to his tutor afterwards, he said, what I loved about that talk that Sid did was that I can do this. I have got the resources that I need. I might need help. I might need support. But I've come this far in my life, and he's a father of 4 young children. He said, I know that I can do that. And what's lovely about that is, again, it comes down to that, what does it mean to me? We all take something, different away from it. Last month, we talked about the wonderful world of care, and I love that word. It's such a brilliant word. So let's talk about the wonderful magic of kindness. And it really is. I say this every month, and I say this in every talk that I give. No one is born unhappy. No child, regardless of where it starts, or where it starts in life. Whatever family, whether it's born into care or whatever, nobody is born unhappiness. And as Martin Seligman, often talks about, we learn that sense of optimism. We learn that sense of pessimism. We really do. And if you think about the physical, the spiritual, and the emotional, psychological environments that we actually live within, think about those. Are they positive? Are they negative? Are they kind in terms of, our work environments? And I know, Hannah, it's something, the work that you do at VMG, it's a very important, element to create, those kinder cultures, that allow people to speak and to be listened to and to be heard and stuff. And as we know, we're wonderfully adaptive, social beings. We really are. And sometimes we need that little kind of nudge to discover and rediscover the magic, which we know is in all of us. Love this. Kindness is one of the only things, or one of very few things, that truly doubles when you share it. And, I think about, the work that we do, and, we are in the care business. We are in the belief business. And, I think that the little talks that I did yesterday, some of them only lasted 10 minutes because that's all I had. Some of them lasted half an hour and maybe a bit longer. But by sharing the good stuff, sharing with people who may be in a vulnerable position or not feeling so great, it's amazing how little you can share and how far that can really go. There was one particular lad who was on a bricklaying course, and he didn't want to be in the session, and he was using some rather strong language at the beginning of the session, saying I shouldn't be, in here or whatever. And I said to him, okay. I said, don't participate. You don't even have to listen to me. Just sit there. We've only got about another 10, 15 minutes. Anyway, he sat there, and as I went through the session, and there were a few things that came up, and I saw him, he was looking to the side, and he started to kind of come around to the front and started looking at the screen and whatever. And at the end of the session, he was the last to leave. He held himself back, and as he was just about to go through the door, he said, "Look, I'm really sorry, Sid, to have said the things that I did. I'm in a bad place at the moment. My grandfather's really ill." He said, "I'm feeling it really difficult to kind of cope and whatever." He said, "I really loved what you were saying, and I'm going to take that to heart." He said, "And I'm going to do something about that." And then he left, and his tutor, who was also in the room, said, "He's never said that in the 9 months that he's been at college." And again, we don't know what people are going through. We really don't. And I could have reacted in an angry way at him and said, "Oh, face the front and do whatever." But when you think of those adverse behaviors and whatever, they're coming from a place of pain. Somebody's struggling along the way, and especially for young people who may find it difficult to articulate their feelings. So that's why I think wherever the situation we're in, never try and second guess anybody in terms of how they're feeling or whatever. And that's why being kind is truly beautiful. It really is. And organizations will never change. Only people do. And we know, whether that's Nike, Apple, or VMG or whatever, great organizations are based on great people. The common denominator for a great human race is a human being. It really is. And that's why it's so important. And, we all face the same struggles. We really do. When you look at the cost of living and, food prices. I can't get over how when I go to the supermarket, and obviously because I've got 3 young children, when I go to the supermarket, I end up buying very similar things. But over the last 6 months to a year, those things have started to get smaller. I was buying some wholemeal wraps the other day, and literally they used to be the size of a dinner plate. And they are literally, I would say, 10%, 15% smaller. And I don't mind that things are becoming more scarce. And I do understand that the cost of living and the cost of food is kind of creeping up. But why do you make everything? Why are people making stuff smaller? So anyway, that's a little bit of a kind of a moan at the moment. So we are facing a huge amount of, external pressure, but that doesn't mean that we can't be kind. And, as I mentioned, we are mirrors of our environments. When we think of the kind of the physical attributes and the brain and all the rest of it, our brains are literally just a huge, great filing cabinet of all of the memories that we've ever had, good and bad. And our actions and our behaviors are literally an outcome of all of those things. So when we look at our environments, let's try and kind of be kinder to ourselves. And I really do think that, for me, my kindness ultimately has to start with me. So I've created an acronym, as I do, loves me acronyms, as you know. And the first K is for kin. It is about all of us. We're all in this together. However many billions of people on the planet, which I think is 8 billion people or whatever. But it starts with you. It starts with me. It's about all of us. It really, really is. And I always think this, if you want to make the world a better place, let's think of a great Gandhi quote, be the change that we want to see in the world. And, it does start with all of us. It really does. And regardless of whether somebody's from Ghana or Swansea or Kent or wherever, we're all in this together. We really, really are. There's a brilliant book. If you ever get the chance, read this book. Helen Russell, brilliant, brilliant writer. She's a journalist, and basically her and her husband went to live in Denmark for a year. He got a job with Lego. And there's so much in this book. It's one of those must go back to reads. Anyway, one of the things that she uncovers in Denmark has got it's one of the happiest nations, in the world. And what I love in one of the things that she uncovered was she uncovered that trust is really high. People in Denmark trust each other. They trust their organizations. They trust their local government, their government, and all the rest of it. And what's really lovely about that is that she also discovered that actually the belief in religion is actually quite low. There's not a lot of people that kind of practicing kind of religious kind of, worship and all the rest of it. Now, what's also really interesting is that she's looked at America and looked at different countries around the world. And she found that in America, the kind of trust index is possibly at an all-time low. But actually, people's want to believe in religion is actually quite high. It's quite a high percentage. And what she's correlated is actually when we trust each other and we trust ourselves to do the right thing, we don't need something external like a religion or whatever. I'm not saying religion's good or bad, absolutely not at all. But we don't need that external validation. We trust each other to do the right thing. So if you get the chance, do read this book. It's brilliant, absolutely fantastic. And I've mentioned Lego, haven't I? And for me, some of the workshops that we do involve kind of Lego and getting people to kind of build stuff. But when I think of Lego as an organization, it's the biggest toy manufacturer in the world. It's the biggest manufacturer of car tires in the world. I know. It's mad. But when you think about it, when they started however many decades ago, what I love about it is, the logo Legot was actually derived from, the Danish word Legot, which is kind of play well, which is really, really nice. And I love the fact that, when we're talking about everybody in the world, I think there are 7 packs of Lego are sold every minute of every day. Yeah, amazing, absolutely incredible. But also what I also love is that these kind of Lego mini characters, which I've got some, with my kids and whatever. But actually, it's one of the biggest population. In actual fact, it is the biggest population on Earth. There are 4 billion of these little characters, and I really like the idea of kin, of kind of thinking about the world as being a wonderful kind of like Lego playground. So again, Lego is really important. So the I is for you. I is about everything starts with me, doesn't it? It's how do I feel? How do I show up? Really, really important to kind of get that across. And I have mentioned this TED talk before. Shonda Rhimes, who is just a legend, an absolute legend. So I think Paul has got a link for this particular TED talk. but it is a brilliant TED talk. It was her whole change of kind of psyche to say that she was just going to say yes to everything within a year. And this TED talk, what I love about it is this saying afterwards that she basically said yes to everything, and she said every yes changes something in me. It's a beautiful, beautiful, story. And one of the stories that she talks to about in the TED talk is when one of her daughters asked her to play when she was leaving home, and she said no, and then obviously realised that that was kind of detrimental to the relationship she had with her daughters and stuff. And then basically from that, she agreed that she would say yes to everything. So when her daughter said before she was leaving, "Can you do this? Can we play? Do whatever?" She just said yes. And I think for me, there are so many no's in the world, and I think we put up so many barriers. I think what I love about Shonda Rhimes, and she's a brilliant writer. I mean, she's written Grey's Anatomy. I mean, she's possibly one of the greatest writers, female writers, in terms of modern television and modern kind of shows, in the history of the world. But I love the fact that she went through a huge change in a year, and it completely changed her life. It gave her much more purpose and kind of meaning, really. And I love this as well. Is like, what are you going to say yes to? And Paula knows this in the work that we do in education and stuff. And we commissioned an app this morning, which we've had in development for well over a year. And we've met somebody brilliant gentleman, and he loves what we do. And we basically just said yes, let's just get on with this. It's going to cost a lot of money, but we know that it will bring a lot of kind of benefit. And it was just really nice, Hannah, just saying yes to a big project and kind of getting on with it, really. And this, the end of kinds, is for now. And again, now 3 little words, but a beautiful, beautiful word, isn't it? And I always think of this. It's like, what's stopping you? And I always think now, and I say that, to my kids. In other words, it's like, when Freddie or Florence says, "Oh, I can't do this," I sort of say, "Well, what's stopping you? Why do you think you can't?" And this is a really big question here. And here, Hannah, this is a question for you openly. What's the one anniversary you don't know?
Oh.
Yeah. It's a goodie.
The one anniversary you don't know.
Mm.
Oh, I feel like it's a trick question because I don't know what I don't know.
That's it.
No, you might have to give me a clue.
Okay. It's quite morbid.
Oh. Okay. Fair enough.
Basically, I mean, we know all the anniversaries, don't you, in terms of our birthdays and everything else. And it was something that I came across a few years ago, really. It's basically the anniversary of our death. Every year we go through 365 days or whatever the year, but it's the one anniversary that we'll never know. But every year we go past it in some way. And quite a few years ago, I came across a story called Living the Dash, which I absolutely love. And basically, I mean, I was born in 1963, so this year I'll be the wonderful age of 60, and I'm really looking forward to that. I think I'm just going to have a big kids party. I'm not going to have a grown-ups party because I like kids so much. So basically, I was born in 1963, and I will die in 2000 something. I ain't going to outlive this century, that is for sure. But when somebody's told me about living the dash, so basically when we leave this planet, whatever, we're going to leave the planet, but we'll kind of die. Basically, on your tombstone or whatever it is, or the obituary, they write about you. They have your date and they have your end date. But what they do is they put the dash in the middle. Well, that is your timeline. I know. And we do a lot of work around this. And for me, it's kind of, that's the anniversary. For me, if today was the anniversary of my death, I'd be thinking, how can I max out? How can I really live the now? How can I really enjoy this moment to the max? And this is a great, great question. And this was something that Eckhart Tolle talks about. And I love this. If you can't make friends with now, with this moment now, ask yourself why. What is it you're waiting for? What is it that's holding you back? Why can't you just embrace now and go, yeah, this is the best time of my life? Because usually what we're doing is we're waiting for that expectation, aren't we? Oh, if I get this job, if I do this, if I get a new house, if I get my hair done, do whatever. And I mentioned this before, but Eckhart Tolle, I love this book, The Power of Now. Brilliant, brilliant book. I mean, so many quotes in there that you can kind of use. But for me, the essence of this book came back to that quote, which is, so if I can't make friends with now, I almost see now as a kind of something you hug. It's like, this is my moment. If I can't make friends with now, what is my barrier? What is stopping me? And years ago, I always used to be thinking so far in the future. Oh, I've got to do this, and creating huge lists and doing whatever. And something I learned quite recently is that people who suffer from anxiety, and man, did I used to suffer badly from anxiety. There was a point in my life where I couldn't even go out of my house. I used to get so worried about meeting other people, I couldn't even get into my car. And eventually I taught myself, get it back in the car, get down the road. I literally used to park outside a shop, and then I used to go back home. I couldn't even physically and mentally go into the shop at all. But one of the things that taught me was that actually people who get very anxious predominantly think far too far in the future. People who are susceptible to depression often think far much more in the past. So therefore, if you want to be present, if you want to be here and now, think about all of the great things that you've got going on right now. Yes, you might have challenges. Absolutely. Challenges are always there. But what is it that's stopping me really enjoying this moment? And, if you kind of go 10 years back and you think of something, gosh, if I go, 15 years, ago, and, I had huge issues with kind of going out and whatever, huge amounts of anxiety. When I think back at it now, I just think, wow, how did I overcome that? We do have those resources to do that. And sometimes those problems that we had years and years ago can seem very small right now. And I love this as well. This is another quote from the book. Where there is anger, there is always pain underneath. And there's another great saying as well. If you bury your feelings, you bury them alive. And I know that might sound a little bit kind of Stephen King. But in a way, sometimes that is so true. We are a manifestation in terms of our behaviors, in terms of our outlook on all the stuff that's happened before. So again, if we're finding it difficult to be settled or feel kind of comfortable, we feel uncomfortable, what are the things that we can do to kind of move forward and kind of enjoy stuff? And I really love this. So if we've got a bad habit of some sort, you will never change that negative habit unless it's more uncomfortable not to do so. And there's a brilliant film, which I'll share with you next time, but it's about a guy, and he was taking, it was almost like $1,000 a month on medication to do with his diabetes and everything else. And his doctor said to him, go buy a tombstone, that's it. Anyway, he was just about to board a flight to go, on work, and the flight couldn't take off because they couldn't find the extension to his seatbelt for his seat. And basically the guy sat next to him said, I'm going to miss my connection such and such because you're too large or whatever. From that moment on, that was a real pivotal point in his life. And he then adopted a dog that was in a shelter. Beautiful, beautiful story and a beautiful film. And basically adopted this dog, and that completely changed his life. He's now completed God knows how many marathons or whatever. But again, it was more uncomfortable for him to feel that way because of what somebody had said. And obviously, somebody said you go buy a tombstone, it's a pretty big kind of wake up call. But again, sometimes it's got to get really uncomfortable for us to do stuff. And the last kind of, letter in kind is D is for delight. How can we pay it forward? And I know there's that wonderful film, isn't there? And as I mentioned, earlier, kindness is the only thing in the world that doubles when you share it. And there is a short film that we'll put in the chat box as well that you can watch about kindness. A beautiful little animation, wonderful little film. And what's, prevalent in this film, but also true, is that kindness does increase self-esteem. All of those things that we talk about. And it's interesting, when I was at this college yesterday, a lot of the tutors said, Sid, don't mention mental health. And I rarely mention mental health because I think as soon as you do, people start to close down, and we've kind of we sort of had it enough, really, or we've heard it enough. But what's really interesting, when we think of mental health, we think of resilience, we think of all the stuff that we kind of struggle with as human beings. If we think about it, kindness does a lot of the good stuff that we want kind of, resilience training to do. It improves kind of empathy and increases kind of compassion and improves mood. It decreases blood pressure, cortisol, which is kind of a pretty bad kind of negative. I mean, it's good in some ways and bad in others, in terms of a kind of hormone in your body. But it actually does reduce kind of stress levels. And also what we find is that people who are kind tend to live longer. How lovely is that? And literally, the acts of kindness don't have to be monumental. I mean, you don't have to go and change somebody's life, but just by holding a door open, or just saying to somebody, come on, let's have a hug, or how are you doing, or whatever, can make a massive difference in somebody's life. It really can. Right, I better hurry up because we're nearly at the end. Anyway, the short film that I just mentioned is in the chat box. Please, please, please do watch it. It's beautiful and it's not very long. And this is another great film. It's called Happy. It was, I think, produced in 2011. It's one of my favorite films. It's only about an hour long. Please, please, please do watch it. And again, we'll put the chat box in there. If you would like, so that's my little kind acronym for the month of April. If you'd like a copy of our little magic booklet, do just download or scan in this QR code. Please, please, please do. But really, kindness starts with the I, in terms of it starts with me. And how can I make my world a better place? How can I make myself feel better about myself, but also share that wonderful magic with everybody else? So there you go, Hannah. That's my little acronym for the month of April.
Thank you so much, Sid. I'm with you. I do love an acronym. So it's lovely to have those little kind of aid memoir things that like just makes you stop and think a second. And I think it's really important also to what you said about thinking more what's stopping you. And in our very sort of busy days, busy jobs, busy lives, it's very easy to get stuck into that kind of treadmill of we've got to be thinking what's next, what's coming up in the future. So it's nice to have a reminder to just take a moment, appreciate where we are now, and particularly in terms of kindness, the value of that both to ourselves and other people is fantastically useful. So thank you very much. Related to that, just a quick plug for a couple of things we have coming up in the next couple of months. So the big one is VMG Congress, which is on the 8th and 9th of June. So if you would like to hear Sid talk more about the things that he's been talking about over the last few months, Sid is doing a whole workshop session on the Thursday of Congress. So we'd love to have you join us for that. And if you would like to hear more about the psychology of kindness, we have the fantastic Professor Gillian Sandstrom from the University of Sussex on the Friday of Congress. She is coming to talk about her work, her research around kindness in the workplace, and how we can actually put that into practice. So that kind of fits in quite nicely with the things that we've been talking today. So we'd love to see you there. And the last thing to mention is that Sid's next session will be next month. So the last of Sid's sessions with us will be the habit of happiness. So the last Wednesday of May, which is the 31st at 1 o'clock. We'd love to have you join us then. So do come along if you can. We'll put all the links up on all the usual places. So we're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube, we are live on LinkedIn. You can watch here with us on StreamYard as well. So thank you very much for joining us, Sid. Thank you very much, everybody watching, and we will see you next month.
Have a great month.
All right.